This is easily the most overlooked tropical snapper for divers everywhere. Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Daniel Mann. In this video today, we're going to be looking at one of the most overlooked tropical snappers that I think is on the face of this planet. People just tend to breeze past them, never give them a second look. The Lutjanus russelli, also known as the Moses perch or Russell snapper, is a relatively small tropical snapper in the big scheme of tropical snappers as far as the world goes. I mean, you can get the Culinary snapper that gets 60, 70 kilograms, or Maori sea perch that get 20 kilograms, but these things kind of top out at about 2.5 kilograms, 3 kilograms. The Australian record is actually 2.56 kilograms by Bryson Sheehy, but shared with another record, 2.58 kilograms by Andrew Sprenger. There's this little nuance in the rules where you have to beat it by a certain margin, so it's a shared record by those two guys. Really big Moses perch, actually. These small snappers are found all throughout the world, starting in East Africa, up to the Red Sea, through the Gulf of Aden, over to the Arabian Sea, round the Indian Peninsula, into the Bay of Bengal, then throughout the Indo-Pacific region, all the way down into Australia. On the east coast of Australia, the furthest south they have been recorded is Jervis Bay, but more commonly you start finding them north of Sydney, all the way up through to the Great Barrier Reef and into, obviously, Indonesia. On the west coast, you start getting them north of Geraldton. The Moses perch is easily identified by the beautiful rose gold bronze color that you find all over the body. Down on the rear flank, they have a conspicuous ocellus. Ocellus, that just means a black eye-like blotch. I googled that word to sound smarter than I actually am. What if I should leave that in? Unlike the golden snapper or finger mark that we looked at a few weeks ago, this large conspicuous marking does not fade after death. The ventral, pectoral, and anal fins are bright yellow, which makes them stand out quite a bit underwater. You can see them coming through the swordtail surgeonfish here, head on, and their pectoral fins sitting out wide, and they are bright yellow, very easy to see. These yellow fins are actually a key identifier to separate them from a closely related species called the one-spot sea perch, or Lutjanus monostigma. The Lutjanus monostigma is found in more northern waters. They grow a little bit bigger, but all their fins are yellow, whereas the Moses perch only has the ventral, pectoral, and anal fins yellow. You can see all the yellow fins here on this one-spot sea perch that I shot in Tonga. The only other similar species that you could possibly mistake the Moses perch for is the stripey sea perch, or Lutjanus carbonotatus, which doesn't have the conspicuous blotch on the back, but when Moses perch are quite a bit smaller, juvenile fish, they actually have some stripes across them. So stripey sea perch, Moses perch, and one-spot sea perch, kind of the same sort of looking fish, but very different if you dive into it a bit more. Moses perch are definitely not something that's high on the target list if you're in the north of the country, because if you're on the Great Barrier Reef, there's probably 20 other fish that you're going to shoot before a Moses perch. However, if you're in southern Queensland, New South Wales, they're definitely worth a look. You can find them in quite shallow water. However, when they school up like this, they are often sub 1 kilogram. I have found in New South Wales that one of the best places to look for these things is on these large boulder type structures that fall away to sand. I recall this fish was just under 2 kilograms. You can also clearly see those bright yellow fins that we were talking about earlier. Moses perch tend to be quite territorial in the way they hang around a certain patch of reef, and you can still find them there even if there aren't other fish in the area or it doesn't look particularly fishy. You can see this is the edge of a boulder type reef where it falls away to the sand. These are great areas to look for Moses perch amongst other species like pearl perch and mangrove jack. This was a pretty good sized Moses perch of 1.8 kilograms. With Moses perch being quite territorial, I would advise against going back to these spots trip after trip, hammering a big Moses perch off it every time you go there. They can get cleaned out very easily from these small patches of reef. I tend to save these areas for a day where I haven't shot anything and I want to get a feed, and go back there, take a Moses perch every so often. I know they're going to be there, so it's a good little ace up the sleeve to have when you're having a tough day's diving. On certain days, these boulder areas are going to be quite fishy as well, and most of the time that you dive these areas, you're probably going to be targeting other key species like parrotfish or mulloway. So if you're going to shoot a Moses perch, be aware that you're going to write off any chance of shooting a mulloway if you shoot one of those Moses perch first. This dive here, I knew that the previous dive, my mate had just shot a mulloway, so they were all going to scatter. I had no chance of getting one, so I decided to take a nice Moses perch of 1.7 kilograms. If you want to target mulloway, because if you shoot anything else, they will spook and go. This dive here was probably my 10th dive I'd done in the area looking for mulloway. If you want to shoot one, you have to show a bit of patience. I probably swam across 10 big Moses perch that I could have shot, but you get rewarded in the end with your patience. I've often found when the water is cold, green and dirty like this, they can be found in much shallower areas. This is because there is a thermocline on the bottom and that's very cold water on the bottom. Then they move to the shallower areas where the water's warmer. This applies for a lot of species when there is a thermocline, so if you're diving on a day like this, you might want to check out some of your shallower spots. You can see the estuary cod in this frame here. This is a fantastic sign that you're diving in a very fishy area, particularly in New South Wales. When it comes to actually shooting a Moses perch, I tend to go for a headshot only because they are quite a small fish and you don't want to ruin any of the meat. When you're diving on some of these boulder type areas and there's a lot of other fish around that distract you like sawtail surgeonfish, etc., it can be quite difficult to get a decent shot on one of these things. You can see here as I'm diving, there's a Moses perch that's a standout fish coming towards me. Didn't quite get a clean shot on it, so I waited a bit, then sawtails swarmed me, I couldn't see through them. It's actually good when they swarm you like this because you know that everything's getting more comfortable with your presence, but it can be quite difficult to try and shoot something if that's all you can see. I did another dive in this spot but only saw small Moses perch. That's probably because I was perched up on top of a rock out in the open, not really hiding myself that well. This area often gets pearl perch as well, so I wanted to scan through the area a little bit before I pulled the trigger. I did another dive on the spot and I decided that I was going to take a Moses perch because I hadn't shot a fish all day. As I approached the bottom, I could see the patch of sawtails. I looked through them, quickly spot a Moses perch. I just have to wait for a clear shot.
Moses perch, they're not the biggest fish in the world. They grow about max 3 kilos. This guy's probably about 1.2, 1.3. Pretty good size, bit of a New South Wales staple. Super tasty. Gotta cook him whole for sure.
Moses perch are actually one of my favourite fish to eat from northern New South Wales. I much prefer them to mangrove jack, contrary to a lot of popular belief out there that mangrove jack's the best thing to eat. Don't really rate it that high. Gonna get a lot of hate in the comments for that, but yeah, I'd much prefer to eat a Moses perch. They are a bit smaller, their flesh is sweeter, it's more delicate, and just taste better in my opinion. They're perfect for any recipe that requires a whole fish. They tend to be quite small, so if you get a 1.5 kilogram fish, it's a fantastic feed for 2 or 3 people. They also don't tend to have those really thick set shoulders like a lot of other tropical snappers do, so they're very even throughout the entire body, which means they cook evenly as well. You don't actually need to do much to these fish to make them taste good. You can cook them whole on a barbecue or a grill just like this. A squeeze of lemon at the end, that's all you need. If you're a new diver out there, why not try looking for Moses perch? They can be found in pretty shallow water, they taste great, and along the way, you're more than likely going to find some pretty cool spots that hold other really good fish like mulloway, pearl perch, Venus tuskfish. It's definitely worth the investment looking for them. I know this isn't my usual style of content, and I appreciate everybody for still tuning in and listening. I know my channel was built on traveling and going to different destinations, but with the lockdown here in the UK, it's simply impossible at the moment, so thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. It actually makes a difference. Subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you on the next one.